Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. It's Dr. Messina Morris, and I want to just welcome you to my behind the scenes after the show. I just did a panel for Gatherverse. Gatherverse is an organization that brings technology and humanity together to make sure that we are being responsible around the entire globe. They've had 37 summits, and I've had the pleasure of headlining, keynoting, and being on many panels. And so it's so an honor to be asked to speak today on a panel about food. So I am Dr. Messina Morris. I'm a biomolecular chemist by training, a mother of five sons, a wife of 28 years, a mother to a son with profound autism. I'm an innovator who builds metaversities. I'm a founder. I'm a caregiver who knows what it means to run a household where nutrition is not theoretical, but essential for survival. Our panel today talked about feeding all humanity towards global nourishment, sustainability, and food security. Now, balancing family for me, caregiving, and leadership has shaped how I see food systems. Feeding humanity is not a macroeconomic need. It is a maternal, scientific, spiritual, and deeply human one. When one child in my home doesn't have what he needs, the whole house feels it. And the same is true for humanity. I'm going to tell you a story about how I was raised. I have a brother named Gordy who, at the age of 4, had meningitis and it left him brain damaged. He had contracted hemophilus influenzae from being in daycare. They ended up quarantining the daycare afterwards, but he and several others ended up either dying or being morbidly ill. My brother, Gordy, went into a coma and lost half of his brain activity due to the high fevers that he had. So the left hemisphere of his brain has no neural activity. And cognitively, he is 18 months. Now, my brother is 55 years old, 8 years my senior, and has been a part of my life my entire life. My mother pioneered what it means to be a caregiver who cared about the nutrition that she put into our bodies to make sure that we cognitively functioned at a high level. And so she cooked every single one of our meals, bought fresh food, went to farmers market, even grew our food. She was organic long before that was a word. There were no artificial colors, flavors, or anything like that. I didn't even taste Kool-Aid until I was like a teenager. So my mom was really very diligent about how we were fed. You knew every day you would have vegetables, and you knew that you would have a protein, you knew that you would have maybe a starch, but there wouldn't be dessert because there wouldn't be sugar. There wouldn't be certain things that were not naturally occurring in your diet. It just was not a thing. And so we used to think that that was mean that we couldn't have cereal or that we couldn't have, just like a bar or, "Mama, why can't we just have sandwiches?" or something like that. But it was really important for her as a woman, as a mother, as a nurturer, as a sustainer of our family to make sure that we had whole foods. And because of that, I attribute a lot of the goodness of my health to the fact that my mom stayed in the trenches, and to this day, she still cooks in the same way, in the same tradition of making sure that we are all fed well with all the nutrients that we need, packs our food with nutrients. And as a mother, I hope to do the same, though my life looks a bit different. I am a special needs mom, and so my son has different needs nutritionally. He has certain things that he has an aversion to. And so I spend a lot of time researching what he needs to also supplement that. Several of the people who were on the panel with me had really good ideas. You have Russell Bundy, who moderated it. Um, But we also had Alea Harris, who brought up really good points about listening to our native communities about how the land is handled in which our food is grown. We had James Welniak, who spoke very highly about what it means to be artificial, and he shared his story of what it looked like when he was living a mostly artificial life as a consultant. We had Orestes that talked about regeneration, and I was on a panel with him earlier about money. We had Andrea, who is from Brazil, and she just talked about the food and how the food supply is basically ruined in a lot of ways. And when she goes back to she's able to see the connection of the people because their food supply isn't artificially um, pumped with all these artificial things. But the discussion was really rich, and the questions, while we don't get through all of them, we never do. Were really poignant questions. So, how can feeding all humanity truly be achieved when many still face hunger in the world? So, feeding humanity begins basically with treating food as a human right. It's not a commodity. Everyone has to eat. Everyone has a stomach. We have the same digestive systems, and I don't care what color, race, creed, or whatever you are, you're still a human being at your core, the core of who you are. And so we prioritize profit a lot, um, efficiency, convenience, and geopolitics over the dignity of food being a human right. And so we produce enough calories just here in the United States to feed the entire world. But there's inequitable distribution, there's a lack of transparency in supply chains, there's um, lack of political will to redesign systems. And so I've learned as a mom, as a caregiver, as a technologist that I have to be more intentional in how I plan meals for a large family, how I create systems and community locally to make sure that I have fresh produce, that I am making sure that I can get the things that my son and my family and my husband need to nourish our body. I am basically definitely like a specialist in making sure that if this one is working out or participating in this sport, they have enough hydrating foods in their diet, or this person has to take medication for a particular ailment. Am I making sure that they are also getting what they need to balance the counter side effects? And as a chemist, I really think deeply about that because I realize that there are chemical reactions happening all around us, and that's within the things that we interact with within our environments, or the things that we ingest. It's the things that we put on our skin transdermally, things under our tongue sublingually. It's things that we even breathe in and out from candles being lit, incense, um, just pollution from outdoors, exhaust. All of those things actually change the biology of your body. And as an educator, I see in real time what all of these um, things do for our children that cause harm. So we see it in real time when it comes to concentration and focus and their ability to persist through complex subjects and their mental fortitude and stamina. We see it in so many ways, absorbing the knowledge that they actually need. So cognitively, we see it. And what we have, especially in the United States, is a world where we've mirrored what it means to be disconnected. And it starts in our gut, it starts in our ability to, or inability to really feed and nourish ourselves well. So micronutrient deficiency is truly the silent saboteur of global health. It steals potentially long before you actually realize that something is wrong. And so people are fed, but they're hungry. Cognitively, they're hungry. They're not cognitively developing well. Their immunity is compromised. Um, when you're pregnant, you have the need to give more of yourself, and so the body breaks down more because you're not able to get those excess calories with nutrient dense food. And then our children that are born into a micronutrient deficiency within themselves. And then we also vaccinate our children, which is another introduction of a substance that could cause some absorption issues in the gut. We also give artificial formulas to our babies. And I'm not saying everyone needs to breastfeed their child, but I'm saying we need to be more cognizant of the foods that we are even introducing. They found a high number of arsenic in rice cereals or in apple juices, and we introduce those foods to our 6 months and above old children. And so it's so many different things that we do to quote unquote fortify our staple foods that are also still causing harm because they block the absorption of other nutrients that our bodies need. So how can we crisis proof food systems? We need redundancy and decentralization. Um, how can humanity balance increased production with regenerative agricultural practices that withstand climate volatility? As a scientist, I see regenerative farming as nature's version of long term investment strategy. We need to heal our soil so that we can heal the system. And AI and XR can actually train farmers in regenerative techniques at scale, modeling outcomes before changes are implemented in real life. And we must honor ancient wisdom with modern tools. What innovative financing and technology solutions show the most promise for farmers? For me, the things that excite me include AI driven precision farming, where we use data to optimize water, fertilizer, and seed usage, blockchain backed supply chains that protect farmers from manipulation in the pricing, microfinancing and mobile banking that allows small farmers, especially women, to access capital that is necessary, XR based training that can teach complex agricultural techniques with immersive simulations. Because when technology is actually democratized, farmers can become entrepreneurs and not just survivors. Another question was, should countries prioritize food self sufficiency or rely on global trade strategies? I don't think that it's a either or, but it's a both. Self sufficiency protects against crises, and global trade protects against scarcity. So, how can the growing food access gap between AI driven agricultural nations and developing countries be bridged? And I think that we bridge this gap through technology transfer with equity at the center and not exploitation. We need to open source AI tools for crop modeling, training programs for smallholder farmers, investments in digital infrastructure, because AI actually requires connectivity, public-private partnerships that reduce the cost of smart farming tools. And bridging the gap actually means refusing to create a two-tiered agricultural world where some thrive technologically while others are locked into analog survival. Another question was, how can global waste be addressed? There's so much food waste. There's so much food waste that happens around the holidays, especially in America. There's a lot of food waste that just happens in general. And we have to really attack the problem from, so what are better harvesting and storage technologies that we could create that won't create other artificial harms or systems? um, Smart logistics that match supply with real time demand, consumer education and incentives for growing your own food, circular economic models where waste becomes feedstock or fertilizer, and energy. I know that food gets wasted when systems and habits are not aligned, but those same principles hold true globally. How can the growing power of multinational food corporations over seeds, distribution, and pricing be addressed? We need to strengthen policy, competition, and transparency, seed sovereignty laws, support for indigenous and local seed banks, antitrust regulation of agricultural monopolies, regional distribution networks that diversify access. When corporations control seed and soil, they also control humanity. It's a power move, and equity requires reclaiming the power at community and policy levels. One of the final questions that were addressed was how can cities sustainably feed themselves amid shrinking rural populations and rising urban demand? Cities themselves must become productive ecosystems, not just consumption hubs. And the most promising solutions that I have seen include things like vertical and rooftop farming, AI managed hydroponics and aquaponics, urban green belts and community agricultural districts, food forests and regenerative landscaping, partnerships between urban centers and peri-urban microfarms, and then understanding that sustainable cities must also treat food production as an essential part of their infrastructure, just like they do water, just like they do transit and energy. So these are things that I feel like should just be known and just unpacked. The conversation for me was deeply personal because I am a mom of 5, I am a wife, I am a caregiver to a son with profound autism. I'm a global innovator that's in the emerging technology space, and I understand how food security shapes the rhythm, hope, health, and stability of a household. Today's discussion was not abstract. It's something that's lived, it's local, it's global, and it's human. And so I was truly honored to be with these leaders today at this summit where we explored how to nourish humanity through innovation, sustainability, equity, and care. And I thank you so much for joining me as I unpack these things. And I look forward to a world where every family can thrive, where every child is nourished in body, mind, spirit, and in their future. God bless you. You can find me at unitethemetaverse.com. Take care.